Good evening. My name is Theodore Foster. I live at 2606 Fox Creek Drive in Richardson, Texas. That's in the Shoal Park neighborhood. There are two things. First, I'd like to thank the council for delaying the vote from the last meeting so that more of us in the neighborhoods could learn about this issue and participate at the meeting with the developers, representatives. I want to thank them for coming out to meet with the homeowners last week on what was a very long but very informative session. I appreciated that. I am one of the people that Mr. Polikoff referred to is somebody that, as I learn more, I get more excited. I think this could be a very good development. I do have a couple of concerns. My first is on the administrative side, looking at the review process for the next steps as building plans get drawn up and the approval process for this. As I understand it, once this form-based code goes into place, any further review of anything is between the developer, the builder, the landowners, and the city staff. And there's no further public review, public comment, public participation, which in this process it's been difficult for the public to keep abreast of what's going on. And I have some more concerns about the public being frozen out of understanding what's happening with what's this land that is our neighbor and what's being developed there, and not being able to verify that the city staff are ensuring that all of the complex code, as Mr. Polikoff pointed out, it is very detailed in some respects. And there would not be a way for the public to ensure that what we understand the code to say is what the developer and the city understand the code to say, and the way the buildings are being developed and built. My other second, perhaps even more significant concern relates to the regulating plan, and specifically the regulating plan for the Bush property. The Groove property is somewhat different if you look at them. Most of the streets on the Bush regulating plan are not mandatory, which means that they do not need to be built, which means that buildings that front them, since there's no street there, don't have to be masonry construction. They don't need to be sidewalks for development that's supposed to be pedestrian friendly. There don't need to be trees along the streets in areas that are supposed to be quasi-public areas. As the developer representative pointed out, the streets and the plans that are being put forward and proposed, if the streets are built, yes, the streets will be important public spaces in this development. But there's no need for, there's no requirement for most of the streets. And that's one of my significant concerns is if there aren't streets, then there aren't going to be inlets and outlets that's going to exacerbate the traffic flow problem. On the south side, for the Bush property, the extension of Ralph Creek is the only required entrance. All of the other streets are optional. They don't need to be built. The slip streets, which as I understand it are an important traffic mitigation technique, they don't need to be built. So, in my mind, I think a lot more of those streets would need to be made either mandatory or, if the developer is looking for some kind of flexibility, which I can understand, maybe there's one or two segments of a street that would not be built because a building's going to extend 2 blocks for some reason. I can understand wanting some flexibility, but I would think that the form-based code could deal with that by either having a single segment of the street be considered some kind of modification that should be approved, or alternately, some kind of ratio to on these non-mandatory streets. 90% of them still have to be built. The code isn't going to mandate that every segment is, but some significant portion of them do need to be built, because without them, this development could look totally different. than what we're being shown in some very nice pictures. And that's one of my most significant concerns with this proposal. So I hope the council and the commission will consider that, or consider that, as some of the commissioners were asking, the impact on street building with building construction materials and the requirements, the way the code works, and look at what happens when the streets don't get built, because the code changes a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much.